Hey everyone, it's Chay on the mic. We're going beyond politics. Hope you're psyched. Not just policies, not just plans. We're talking dreams, hobbies, and life's other strands. We'll meet the leaders behind the scenes, uncover the stories in between, the laughs, the quirks, the passions they hide, their personal moments, unfiltered and wide. Ready or not, let's get underway. This is Beyond Politics with Chay. Welcome to Beyond Politics with Chay, an online show that explores the personalities behind our elected leaders and potential candidates. Today we have Conroy Blood, a representative from the Greens Party and an elected councillor of the Canterbury Bankstown region. Conroy, please give us a 30-second intro about who you are and how you came about to being a councillor in the Canterbury Bankstown region.
Of course. So my name's Conroy Blood. I'm an elected Greens Councillor in Canterbury Bankstown in Canterbury Ward. I'm a lifelong Canterbury Bankstown resident. I'm a Bulldogs member. I've grown up in this community my whole life.
Welcome to the show. We're so pleased to have you here. Greens representative, Canterbury Bankstown, not a usual combination, but glad to see that we have more of that diversity in politics coming through. Now let's move to my favourite part of the show, icebreakers. I ask a series of questions, the same questions to each person on the show. Starting with the first one, tell us one thing people don't know about you.
One thing people don't know about me. I can play the bass guitar. That's not a thing many people know about me, I suppose, in political spaces.
Nice. Okay, the most common compliment you receive on a daily basis?
Generally, I'm quite assertive. I can speak my mind. I know how to express myself quite clearly, and I know how to stick up for myself. So, yeah, I guess assertiveness is the quality.
Assertiveness, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say you talked your way around that one. So it's great to be assertive, great to see that obviously come through in your career. Okay, a standard question as well. If you could introduce one feature to a smartphone, that could be Android or the iPhone, what would it be?
I think something that can help you find your keys if it's missing, or your wallet or something. I don't know how it would work, but something that could just track where it is. That would be pretty handy.
Do they have AirTags? Has anyone tried the AirTagging their keys? I know, is that something that you've tried before?
I mean, I know it's a thing, but they're $40, I think. It's not. Yeah.
So like an app.
Yeah.
That tracks your keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually would definitely back that up.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to your childhood. Talk to me a little bit about your story. Where did you grow up?
So I've grown up my whole life in Canterbury Bankstown. So I started living in Canterbury, but I did sort of move around a little bit just because my parents weren't living together. So my dad has lived in Riverwood in public housing. He's lived in Punchbowl in public housing. He's living in Bankstown at the moment. But mum's always lived in Canterbury my whole life. So I've sort of lived all over Canterbury Bankstown. I went to primary school locally at Canterbury Public School, but Mum wanted me to have a Catholic education for high school, so I did leave the area for there, but I was educated locally and have always, lived locally.
Local, great. So can I ask you a question?
Yep.
If you could share with our viewers one heartwarming story from your childhood that inspired you to enter politics.
Yep. To be honest, the biggest driver for me to enter politics was the climate strikes that were happening around 2018 and 2019. And I went to school near where the climate strikes were happening. I could see them. I could see the energy. For me, it was just super heartwarming seeing all these young people of all ages coming out, getting up, speaking for their future, speaking for what they care about. And that was, kind of the point that drove me to be more politically engaged and to, get involved in the Greens.
Thank you for sharing that very heartwarming story from your childhood, and I'm sure the local residents in Canterbury Bankstown will be able to put their hands on their heart and say that they have a very local boy coming to represent their area. So thank you for that. Let's move on to a passion or talent. Now this, I love to see what comes out of this from the different people that I interview. Tell me a little bit. What is either one passion or talent that you have that would surprise people if they knew?
So I did mention earlier that I'm a bass guitar player, and I've been playing it on and off kind of since about year 5 and 6. I put it down and pick it up a little bit, but yeah, it's a bit of fun. It's just something to do when I have a bit of spare time. I guess in terms of like other passions, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily talented at it, but I played a lot of cricket and rugby league growing up. At a pretty low level, it was always something I found fun, but I wouldn't call it a talent.
So that's, I think, a great way to distinguish between the two. I know. So passion, something that you really love, might not be something that you're good at, and a talent, obviously something that you're really good at, but maybe you're underselling yourself with the bass playing. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of picked it up because when I was younger, I was really into rock music, like AC/DC and that sort of stuff.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. So that was sort of the big thing. And I come from, at least on Dad's side, it's a little bit of a musical family. You know, he's got a cousin who was the lead singer of a pretty successful punk band. My dad can play the guitar. You know, so there's a bit of music in the family. So sort of drove me to being engaged.
What's your favourite song to play on the bass?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's not my favourite song to listen to, but Hysteria by Muse is just fun to play, like in terms of like the trickiness and like how it is to play it, yeah.
What's the hardest song that you've played on the bass?
I can't play it anymore because since high school I've played it a little bit less, but at one point I could play a song called YYZ by Rush.
Nice.
Yeah.
Today, I've asked you, Conroy, as part of the policy and politics discussion, which we're about to get into, to focus on housing affordability and the cost of living crisis.
Yep.
Now, could we start off with the first question? In your view, how difficult is it to buy property in Sydney, particularly in the Canterbury Bankstown region, which you are elected to represent?
Far too difficult, that's all I can say. Yeah. Look, if you look at how wages have been growing compared to house prices over the past 40, 50 years, the gap is just widening and widening. For young people, it takes longer and longer to save up for a deposit. With interest rates, you know, even a deposit isn't enough. People can't afford the repayments. And obviously, Canterbury Bankstown does tend to be cheaper than other areas surrounding, like the Inner West, Burwood Council, Strathfield Council, but it is still far from affordable. Yeah.
We touched on this a little bit, but could you talk to me about the challenges of buying your first home?
Yeah, well, I think apart from the cost, I think there are lots of things I personally want to live near. I want to live near good public transport. I think there are massive gaps in infrastructure, especially in places like Canterbury Bankstown in Western Sydney. It's very hard to use public transport. It's very hard to use bikes, all that sort of active transport. And that's something I want to consider when I buy a house. I don't want to have to drive everywhere. I think also, you know, to me, what's really important is open green space, open public parks. And I think we're seeing more and more of a tendency that these sorts of green spaces are disappearing. And I also, you know, when I'm considering buying a house, I think it's important to me to have a good school nearby for my children. And I think public education is like very, very difficultly underfunded. So, you know, I feel, and I'm sure a lot of people also feel very constrained. The prices of house are ridiculous. But generally, as the prices go down, the essential infrastructure people want and need, like, you know, like public transport, like good quality schools, the quality decreases. So it's incredibly hard to find a balance.
So what you're saying is, yes, there are challenges naturally in every property market, such as property prices, the high price of property, obviously cost of living, but you're also saying, specifically for Canterbury Bankstown, there are facets that are that need that extra push.
Absolutely.
Infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Better education.
Yeah.
That's a very unique perspective for Canterbury Bankstown. What about other cities? Do you think Sydney is unique in its challenges?
I mean, I think we live in a very globalised world where our economy is interconnected. Basically, what's happening in the US happens to a lot of places. So I do think that there is housing inflation in lots of countries, but Sydney is not like others. I'd say there's a few other cities in the world that are having similar things. My family in Dublin, I know the housing market there is absolutely terrible. Hong Kong, Singapore, those sorts of places have had massive bubbles. But I think compared to the growth we're seeing in other cities, Sydney is more unaffordable, more difficult for young people to, get into the property market.
So we often hear about high property prices, which you've just touched on, and rising rent costs as the main challenges for entering the property market. What about generational wealth? How do you think it impacts first home buyers?
Yeah, well, generational wealth absolutely impacts first home buyers. If your parents have assets, that's a security for you. Like, even if your parents aren't willing to chip in and pay a bit off their mortgage, the fact that you might have inheritance coming down the line, people may, be more likely to take the risk and say, hey, I'll take up a mortgage earlier. I think parents obviously have their kids' best interests in heart. So, a lot of parents who do have large amounts of assets are the only reason their kids are actually able to enter the property market, chipping into their rent, chipping into their mortgage.
So do you think generational wealth has or is covered in the media enough?
Absolutely not. And I think, personally, there needs to be more discussions around looking to towards a wealth tax. Maybe not necessarily towards everyone, but the richest sort of people in society, because it's we focus on redistributing income, but if you look at the difference between income inequality and wealth inequality in Australia, wealth inequality is so much more drastic just because it's much easier to accumulate assets. And I think there needs to be more conversations when so many people are doing it tough. And certain people, their wealth is just growing and growing. How can we use that to help those that are in need and deserve the support of the government? Yeah.
Clearly, this is an issue that's close to your heart, so thank you so much for sharing that. Our last question for this particular segment, before we get into the more fun questions, is in your role as an elected councillor, what initiatives could the council or other councils consider introducing to support residents facing the higher cost of living?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're in an interesting time at the moment because the state government has been stripping away some of councils' planning powers. I think with the introduction of the transport-oriented development scheme, which overrides councils' own planning controls, which my party did oppose in the state government, that's been taking away planning controls. Chris Min's three-person planning panel is also taking away planning controls. So to be honest, the amount that councils themselves can do, unfortunately, is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But that doesn't mean there's nothing they can do. I mean, in terms of housing, council has the opportunity to develop their own affordable housing, and it looks like council might be looking to do some in the near future, which I'm really happy about. Council, they could give their land to the federal government to develop public housing, but that's subject to whether the federal and state government actually want to develop it. But also like general cost of living things, because if people have more income, it's easier for them to rent. Councils can help support community organisations like food banks, like clothing drives for people who need clothing. They can use their resources to promote these sorts of initiatives. Those are the main things I have in mind. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move to rapid fire. Rapid fire is a series of very quick questions, and I need very quick responses from you on these questions. The first thing that comes to mind, no right or wrong answer, clearly. So the first one, favourite movie, Conroy?
Breakfast Club.
Why?
You put me on the spot here. I just like the plot. I think it's a cool plot. It's entertaining. It's interesting. The characters are cool. They're human. They're relatable. Yeah.
You talked to us a little bit about this before. Favourite song?
Fat Lip by Sum 41.
Nice. Why?
It's groovy. I'm not someone who listens to the lyrics in songs much. I listen to the instrumentals more. I'm that type of person, and I think the guitars and the drums and the bass do cool things in it. It sounds nice. Yeah.
Favourite meal?
Favourite meal?
Yeah.
Halal snack pack.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lamb or chicken? Or beef?
Beef. Yeah.
Chili sauce? Garlic sauce?
Yes, chili,
combo.
garlic barbecue.
On that note, best or top cafe that you love visiting?
Well, it would be my local, which is the Little Cup and Saucer in Canterbury. It's near to home. Excellent coffees, excellent food. Yeah.
Nice. And this is going to be a tricky one, especially if you don't read. But the last book you've read?
Probably my textbook, Principles of Constitutional Law or whatever it was.
All right, nearly wrapping up the show with Conroy. I have to ask you, what is your personal mantra or a quote that you live by that you'd love to share with our viewers?
I mean, I don't think I live by a particular quote, but like sort of the philosophy or the worldview I live by is how can I make things better for those who are worse off in society. So the idea of social justice, I guess the idea of love thy neighbour, those sorts of things, just, with everything I'm doing, I think about, am I making this world a better place for those who are in need? Am I making a world a better place for those who are disadvantaged? That's kind of, the philosophy and worldview I like to live by. Yeah.
Lastly, Conroy, tell our viewers about the best way to contact you.
Hi, I'm Conroy Blood. Thank you, Obs Arab Media, for having me today. The best way you can reach me is on my Instagram, Conroy Blood Greens, or my council email and phone, which I'm yet to memorise, but you can find it on Google.
Thank you so much, Conroy, for joining us on Oz Arab Media today. To many more episodes and all the best in this next chapter.
Thank you. All right.